Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, if it's one of them situations where Ubisoft knows it has a disastrous dumpster fire on its hands when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows, well, let me give you a little bit of new evidence with that, because Ubisoft is now running to the New York Times to not only attack players, but try to rewrite the narrative about an absolutely historically inaccurate nonsense BS story that we know is just going to be in the exact same veins and lines of Shadow, of course, of none other than Star Wars, and how bad Outlaws is absolutely bombed. And in a year where Ubisoft is absolutely desperately strapped for cash and we're banking on both of these games to end up turning the company around, well, it looks like they know they have a dud on their hands because they are doing everything they can to run interference. And as we all know, it's going to end up failing miserably. So we're going to check out this article from thatparkplace.com, getting all of the juicy details of exactly what Ubisoft is doing and how we have seen this exact same kind of tried and failed method in the past. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, because boys and girls, we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below letting us know what you think about all of this kind of stuff out there, and do you believe you are going to you're going to actually try Assassin's Creed Shadows, or are you going to wait for all of the video game reviewers out there to tell you how much of a broken and buggy mess it actually is before you even bother looking at the game, or are you just flat out completely and totally done with Ubisoft and all of their nonsense? All of those comments, let us know in the comments section down below. So Ubisoft runs to New York Times to attack players in defense of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Color us shocked there, because, oh yes, we know the New York Times is all down for the agenda and certainly has no problem lying to people out there with all kinds of historical inaccuracies out there. So French video game developer Ubisoft ran to the New York Times in order to attack its own players in an attempt to salvage its upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows game. Yeah, that's not gonna work, because boys and girls, I think all of us are really known for going to the New York Times for our video game information now, aren't we? And this also just shows you how stupid these people are too, right? How elitist they are, because they thought going to the New York Times was going to help them out with gamers. If you really believe that, I got some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. Please call me. Call me, Ubisoft. In a play straight out of Prime Video's playbook for Lord of the Rings of Power, Ubisoft leveraged Zachary Small in the New York Times as well as a so-called expert to attack players ahead of the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you recall, back in February of 2022, Rings of Power executive worked with Vanity Fair writers Anthony Bezzing and John Robinson to attack fans of the J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, knowing that what they had created was an abomination. And yeah, that's seeing the exact same thing here with this one, aren't we, boys and girls? And of course, they go on to talk about the diverse cast, multicultural nonsense, yada, yada, yada. So she was used by Vanity Fair to attack Tolkien fans and imply they are racist for simply wanting lore-accurate adaptations. Maldonado questioned. Obviously, there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea of the elf is a black or Latino or Asian? Well, it's not even that anybody cares so much about the race swap in particular. It's the fact that this show is an absolute abomination. And the first red flags we knew was when you started race swapping and gender swapping characters. And then, of course, making it to where dwarves apparently don't have beards in this show. If you didn't care about being accurate to the lore in that aspect of it, why would we think you're going to give us anything good or accurate with any of the rest of this nonsense? This isn't like Lawrence Fishburne getting cast as Perry White and everybody knowing that it was cast as Perry White because Lawrence Fishburne is an absolute awesome actor and everybody loves him. No, what this is we know you guys go out there and intentionally kind of cater to this nonsense, and we've seen evidence of this in the past. We know what MGM over at Amazon is trying to push out. We know the kind of nonsense dribble. That's exactly why this kind of cover stuff doesn't work. So, and it won't work for Assassin's Creed Shadows or Ubisoft either. Your game's going to fail miserably, and your company very well might not even exist in its current form next year, and honestly, I'm kind of here for that. Ubisoft has done something similar with the New York Times and Small. Like Brenzikin and Robinson's, Small wrote, some gamers erupted over his appearance, convinced that the franchise, known for its immersive recreation of the past, had gone woke. No, anybody who tries to use revisionist history to justify their diversity, inclusion, and equity is woke. That's how we know what this is coming. And once again, we're not saying that the game is going to be bad. We don't know that yet. But we've studied history, we've seen this kind of thing happen, and we don't have to go very far back. Star Wars Outlaws had this exact same kind of marketing, this exact same kind of push for diversity and all of this other kind of nonsense, and we saw what a mess that game was. I mean, they literally had to release a patch within its first week that broke all of your current progress in the game to where you had to start over even if you paid the $110 to $120 for the early access. Why would this be any different? He then claims the developers received personal attacks and death threats during an online harassment campaign. Receipts? Receipts, please, because we can show you our receipts, right? We can show you all of the people in the fellowship that have received actual death threats, that have received very racist things said to black people in our community. Oh, yes, that's right. There's black people that don't agree with your woke agenda. I know, a strange concept that was completely and totally break your brain. And guess what? Those same people will not be buying your game either. He claims that developers, but to no surprise, he shares no evidence of such attacks or threats. After attacking gamers, Small then weaves a false narrative that has already been refuted for months by citing historian Yu Haram, who is an admitted communist. Why does it always lead back to the Marxism and the communism? Oh, that's right, because that ideology is straight from hell itself. And that's why people keep trying to push this kind of stuff. That's why it's just blatantly evil, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming from hell itself. Don't believe me? Look around. Can you explain anything else with this kind of insanity? Come on, boys and girls. Small cites Haram's claim that there's without question that Yusuke was a samurai. There are very few historical documents about him, but there is no doubt he was a samurai who served Nobunaga. Oh, that's right. Except actual historians, not communists, have disputed this fact over and over again, and even claims flat out that this stuff was added in later and not part of the original source material, and the fact that he even gave the guy a sword and armor at one point. Revisionist history strikes again. I wonder why they do that. Oh, that's right. Actually being historically accurate would not fit their agenda-driven nonsense, which is what all of Assassin's Creed Shadows is all about. It's agenda-driven nonsense, and trying to go out there and push this kind of stuff at the New York Times just only once again confirms another red flag that is going to confirm that this game is going to be a disastrous dumpster fire, and I'm here for it. However, it's highly disputed that he was a samurai, as historian Yuichi Goza, who is a faculty member of the International Research Center for Japanese Studios, focusing on Japanese medieval history, and the author of What is a Samurai, speculated that Yusuke was simply Oba Nobunaga's bodyguard and entertainer rather than a samurai. Like, literally, he was essentially like your court jester, but also because he was big and large and imposing, he kept him around as a bodyguard. But there is no evidence whatsoever to show that he's an actual samurai other than a bunch of revisionist history nonsense. And Goza even continues that even if he was a samurai, it may have been a formality. For example, in the Edo period, feudal lords were fond of having sumo had their own personal wrestlers. Formerly, they were treated as vassals or samurai and were allowed to wear a sword, but even if a war broke out, it was not expected that the feudal lords would allow their retainers to fight on the battlefield. No, because you were there for their personal entertainment. They think you're something great to have around that elevates themselves. It's essentially literally no different than the crazy women out there in Hollywood that have chihuahuas in their fancy purses. It was literally the equivalent of that. That's what this guy was during the time period for all of this kind of stuff. So it literally just goes on and on to point out that all of this kind of stuff is nonsense. This is blatantly false and makes absolutely no sense, given Small even admits that Ubisoft apologized to Japanese players. Small wrote, after the online blowback, the game's development team attempted to assuage concerns about the game's authenticity, apologizing in a lengthy statement for promotional materials that it said had bothered some Japanese audiences. He even noted a political party in Japan formally asked the government to comment on what it's considered its historical inaccuracies, which of course the government's response was, we're just going to wait until the game actually comes out to actually investigate things and properly do it. So of course there won't be any changes made beforehand in any way, shape, or form. So here's it directly from a Japanese YouTuber. He explained a number of reasons why Japanese gamers are opposing the game and have signed a petition calling for Ubisoft to cease development of it. It's not going to happen. This disastrous dumpster fire is coming out because Ubisoft is so desperate for money that they absolutely have to put anything they can out just to hope to even glean maybe $1 or $2 back on the hundreds of millions of dollars they have wasted on going woke, where they are about to find out that, yes, you will indeed go broke. So he says, we are protesting marketing DEI's historical distortions stemming from their disregard for Asians and their arrogance and discretionary responses to a protest from Japan. From there, he focuses the video he describes as the biggest attempt to distort the history of Japan. That is legendary samurai. They claim Yasuke is one of them, and he was simply not. And once again, in a time period where even if this wasn't an intent, which we don't believe them, we know that's a lie. We know all of this stuff is simply nothing more than shadows. It's nothing more than gaslighting and absolute nonsense. Because guess what? How do we know this? Can we read their minds? Have we had some vision from God? Has he come down on high and told us? No, but what he has granted us is enough intelligence to be able to look at historical things happen, study them, and learn what this happens. There's a reason why we call these kind of things red flags, when they kind of push this kind of nonsense marketing. And when they just go out there and flat out insult an entire country out there, then tell them that we're all the crazy ones, and then go to all places out there, the New York Times, to try to gaslight even more people about this, we know what this is going to be. We know that this was an attempt at diversity, inclusion, and equity, and forcing a historical revisionist history onto Japan and into a video game. And guess what? As always, gamers and fans are smarter than all of these people running the corporations, because they don't understand us, they don't respect us, and they think we're just a bunch of dumb idiots out there who will just lap up anything they serve. Well, guess what? They're finding out very quickly that that is not going to work, and that is not the case. It never has been, and it never will be. Just like Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft's next failure will be Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it will be a disastrous dumpster fire. And boys and girls, I cannot wait to document that here for you, because it is going to be hilarious. Go woke, go broke. Ubisoft, your gaslighting is not going to work. We all know what time it is. We know what kind of nonsense it is. We've got your number, and guess what? This game will fail. You will lose even more money. And it'll be very curious to even see if Ubisoft exists in its current form this time next year. After 2 back-to-back flops, well, they're going to get what they deserve.